guitars. And I want to introduce you to the Eilon, which is part of the Heritage series, which is all based on kind of paying homage to some of the classics that we all know and love. If you want to get a real Strat or a Telly or something from the kind of the wonder years, as it were, it's going to cost you a small fortune. And something I want to do here at Redman is to create instruments that everyone can afford. You know, they're not ridiculously expensive, but they're all handcrafted by me. But they give you the specifications, the sound and the feel that you would expect from a kind of a vintage instrument. So this one here, this is very obviously an S-type, as you can tell, and it's all vintage spec. So we've got bent steel saddles. This one actually has a big steel block just for a little bit better sustain, and you get kind of a nicer feel, slightly softer feel from the trem arm if you're a trem player, which is quite nice. I've also put a Goldo backbox in here, backstop, so you can see that you can dial that in to either get some flutter on your trem arm or no flutter at all, or you can use that to lock off the trem so that you can only do dives, or you can lock it off full so that this is butted against the body and it effectively becomes a hardtail. The neck is one-piece maple with the walnut stripe down the back. Vintage style tuners, these are nickel and they're 15:1 ratio with the split posts. Bone nut, this is Jescar medium fret wire. I usually like to use jumbo fret wire, but on this kind of instrument I think the slightly thinner, taller fret wire works nicely. There's a 9.5 inch radius, so it's not quite as curvy baseball bat type as the original might have had, but it's in that kind of area, so it's just slightly flatter to ease playing and make it a bit more comfortable, but it's still got that kind of a feel and a groove to it, which is really nice. Now, one thing I have done on the necks is I've rolled all the fingerboard edges, and I've also, I don't know if you can see this clearly on the video, but just behind the nut there's a transition from the kind of vintage amber gloss into a kind of a satin, and that it finishes again just at this point here. Helps to make it a bit more comfortable, a bit smoother and just a bit more playable, and it has that kind of worn-in feel right from the start, which is brilliant. It's exactly what you want. Okay, so moving down to the body, which is a two-piece alder body, and it's finished, this one in particular is finished in surf green. It's a nitrocellulose finish. It's got a few coats on it, but it's still very thin, and it's a breathable kind of paint, and it wears very naturally and quite quickly as well. So if you're into that kind of road-worn, vintagey, relic-y look, then this will happen for you naturally quite fast, and it'll happen through your playing, not through someone dragging around a car park somewhere. Okay, so we've got a kind of a parchment coloured pickguard, and this is a 3-ply, and it's completely shielded on the back to reduce any hum and noise. We've got a Seymour Duncan SL1 pickup set. All the wiring here is 22 gauge cloth pullback waxed wire, just for that kind of, just keeping it real with the vintage vibe. CTS pots, 5-way switch, not a 3-way, just to give you those kind of quacky, funky, stratty in-between tones, which are also hum cancelling. Switchcraft, jack and switch. There's a spray orange drop tone cap in there, and I also use these, I think they're, I can't remember what, the Knox with 2 X's, the quick release strap blocks, which I love. I think they're the best ones out there. I absolutely adore them. And it means that, yes, you might have to put these strap buttons on all your guitars if you want to share one strap, but they're so quick, so reliable, and they're not too intrusive, they're not too big. You don't have to put a massive great screw in like you do with some of the other brands, and they're not all clunky and wobbly and horrible. So they're my preferred choice. Obviously we can customise anything you want. So let's talk about some of the tones. So let's start on the bridge. I'll just get the trem arm out of the way. By the way, this is a push in, pull out trem arm. And in the back of the trem block is a grub screw to tighten. There's a kind of a rubber collar in there, which lets you adjust the tension, so you can have it freely moving or you can have it just out of the way. Okay, so signal path, I'm going through a Strymon Flint just for a bit of reverb, and this is set to a 60s spring reverb. You hopefully you can hear that. It's not overly heavy, just enough to give it a nice feel. And that is going into the Goblyn amp, which is a point-to-point hand-wired all-valve amp that I make here. It's kind of American voiced, as you can tell. It's kind of like it's 7 watts, single-ended, and it sounds a bit like this. Okay, so let's run through the tones of the guitar. Okay, so that's the bridge position. We'll go into position 2, which is these two. Position 3, just the centre pickup. Go for neck and middle together. This is kind of the glassy, this is my favourite tone of this guitar, I think. And most people's favourite on a Strat, which is the neck position. Okay, so that's just kind of straight clean sounds. Let's add just a little bit of maybe I'm going to use the Pugilist distortion pedal, and I'm going to go for the first kind of blended channel. So there's a 2-channel distortion, so this is more subtle. Let's just crank the level just a little bit and get myself a pick. Same on the bridge pickup, which is just a little bit hotter on this set. Okay, so that's kind of a reasonably subtle overdrive. It's I wouldn't say it's a boost, there's definitely some distortion there, but it works really well with this Strat. Now, something this also does really well is a much more driven sound, so I'm going to stick with the same pedal, but I'm going to go to the 2nd channel, so I'm going to blend through. This also has a bass boost, but I'm going to leave that off just so you can hear the kind of the naturalness of it. So let's go to position 2.